so early. He explains he's just doing maintenance on his scissors, and Elisa praises him for it, saying that people who take care of their tools always do good work. Takeru starts to think that working on things like this feels pretty good sometimes. And although he started this by chance, he thinks that gathering materials really suits him. Finally, after breakfast, Porum decides to head out, but this time Takeru chooses to sit in the driver's seat with him. He takes the unicorn's reins and asks it to pick up the pace a bit, and surprisingly, the unicorn obeys him. Porum is a little surprised that he's already managed to win over the unicorn, but Takeru explains that the unicorn is just very smart, not him. A while later, they finally arrive at Tormi village, so Porum's family says goodbye to Takeru, thanking him for everything. Takeru thanks them as well, since because of them, he didn't have to walk all the way back to the village. After seeing them depart, Marlowe remarks that if Porum has indeed returned, then that signifies the arrival of spring. Takeru asks what Porum's work is exactly, and Marlowe explains that in winter he goes to warmer areas, engaging in weaving to make a living. That's why when he returns it means spring has come. He mentions it's tough because without a home, they barely manage to survive with food and supplies. Takeru then understands why Porum cried like a baby over his food, and realizes just how fortunate he is to possess skills enabling him to gather materials. His thoughts are interrupted by Marlowe, who reminds him that he should go report to Jerome about his job. Takeru decides to go as soon as he mentions it, and while V plays with the village children, Jerome inspects the items he brought, along with the mithril he had asked for. Takeru hands it over, waiting for what he's going to say. However, the silence drags on as Jerome carefully inspects the small piece, and all Takeru can hear are his grunts. Finally, after a while, Jerome speaks, saying that what he brought is insane. His instinct tells him it's not just any rock but magical mithril ore. Of course, Takeru already knows this, but Jerome is clearly shocked, so he asks where he found such a thing, since it's legendary material. Takeru didn't expect it to be so valuable and can't help but raise his voice in surprise. Jerome tells him that this is like a concentrated mana mass, so just a few fragments of it could actually replace all the magic stones used throughout the entire kingdom. Once again, Takeru is surprised to hear it's that powerful, so he nervously lies, saying he just found it lying around. Jerome clarifies that even if he just stumbled upon it beneath his feet, the very act of picking it up indicates he possesses both luck and skill. However, just having skill isn't enough, as he's completely unfamiliar with this world's common sense, which is precisely why he needs to go to Belkane. Belkane is a city 1,000 times bigger than this village, so there he'll find all sorts of information and an adventurer's guild. He'll be able to learn how this world works, and they can also buy all the materials he manages to gather. Jerome admits it will pain him to see his talent leave, but if he manages to make a name for himself, spreading Tormi's name, his shop will eventually prosper too. Takeru just gives a nervous smile, for deep down he knows he has no plans for fame. Still, he finds himself intrigued by that big city Jerome brought up. That night at the inn, he decides to look up other terms Jerome mentioned, and discovers that a guild is simply an adventurer association that manages requests throughout the territory. The book he's reading mentions that adventurers are divided into combat, support, and many other roles. Takeru closes the book, opting to think, knowing that, sent to another world, he truly wants to travel and see what he couldn't before. As an adventurer, he could earn money while he travels, so he decides his new goal is to join a guild in Belkane City. However, there are still things he wants to do in Tormi village, so he decides to take it easy for now. It seems V agrees with him, so for the following days, Takeru enjoys spending quality time with the villagers, learning things he never before imagined, and participating in their celebrations alongside them. Finally, he decides it's time to leave, so a woman gives him several supplies for his journey. She hands him a bag of broth powder, made from rockhop bones, and inquires if he needs any additional seasoning for his journey. Takeru tells her he has plenty, since she's already shared so much, so he'll be fine. The woman's face suddenly falls, and she admits she'll feel quite lonely tomorrow without him around. And Takeru tells her he'll miss her just as much. She mentions the villagers thought he should stay longer, but Takeru explains there's so much more out there he wants to see. He simply can't stay, even if he wished he could. Knowing this, the woman said she wouldn't try to hold him back and decided to give him a travel lunch, as it would take almost a month to reach Belkane City. Takeru smiles and thanks her for the gesture, but the woman keeps piling bags into his arms for his trip, so many that Takeru starts to feel grateful he has an item box. He goes back to the inn and tries to figure out what to do with the magical mithril ore since Jerome couldn't buy it, but maybe he could find a use for it. V was also trying to think of something but quickly gives up and decides to sleep. Takeru doesn't blame him, since he can't think of anything either. He knows he owes this village a lot, so he tries to devise something to help. Just then, Takeru briefly remembers something he saw during the village, and he decides to attempt something new, utilizing a lamp and a piece of mithril magic ore. He concentrates on imagining what the object he wants will look like when it's finished, and in a matter of seconds he manages to create a special kind of lamp. The next day all the townspeople gather to see him off, and Porum can't help but cry. Before leaving, Takeru tells Marlowe that he created a magic barrier tool that projects a barrier around the village. That way, anything with malice or harmful intentions won't be able to enter the village. Marlowe gets quite surprised upon hearing it's that powerful, so he then asks if he is truly sure they are able to accept such a gift. Takeru clarifies that it's his way of thanking them all and a wish for their safety until he returns. Marlowe sincerely thanks him, assuring him he'll always be welcome back to their village. And Takeru replies that he'll definitely be back, since the village of Tormi is his home now. Everyone is deeply moved by his words, but then Jerome suddenly snatches the lamp to examine it thoroughly. Just as he notices the lamp has the valuable piece of mithril, Takeru makes a run for it before he can protest, telling them to take care. They all bid him farewell, and Jerome, having no other recourse, accepts the gift, merely requesting that he exercise caution out there. And so Takeru sets off on his journey with Vi, wondering what kind of place Belkain will be. After walking for a while, he remarks on the peacefulness of the surroundings, but at that very moment, they unexpectedly encounter a giant crab right in the middle of the path. Before taking any action, Takeru immediately employs his appraisal skill to scan the creature, discerning it to be a rank C Mont-Blanc crab specifically, an edible omnivorous digging crab. That last part is the only thing Takeru really cares about, and he tells Vi that crab meat is incredibly delicious, so it's on the menu for dinner tonight. With that in mind, he instantly uses reduction and hardening magic on his body, getting ready to fight. However, before he can do anything, Vi swoops in and uses a sonic attack that defeats the crab without even touching it. Takeru is a little surprised that it can do something like that, having no idea, but he's actually quite pleased. Several other Mont-Blanc crabs surround them in a matter of seconds, but Takeru isn't intimidated, saying they're just crabs. That means if they can only move sideways, he can use that to his advantage. Just as he finishes saying that, the Mont-Blanc crabs suddenly start moving straight forward, catching him completely off guard. But before he gets sandwiched, Vi quickly lifts him to safety, making the crabs collide with each other. Takeru thanks Vi for saving him, but notices there's still one Mont-Blanc crab left, so he decides to face it himself, saying he'll enjoy eating it. The crab lunges at him, but Takeru uses his ultimate technique and strikes it with his staff. Just like that, he easily defeats all the Mont-Blanc crabs. So that night, Takeru doesn't waste any time and gets ready to eat them. He first uses hardening magic on his hand to protect his body, cutting off all the legs. Once he's done, he places a large pot over the fire and throws in all the legs with plenty of water and salt, letting them boil. After a while, the crab seems to be ready, so Takeru takes out a leg and cracks the shell to start eating. Both he and Vi were absolutely delighted with the taste, so Takeru is now more excited than ever to keep traveling, eager to explore new places and try more amazing food with Vi. They both enjoy their meal that night, and after a long journey they finally reach the trading city of Belkain. Takeru is utterly captivated at first glance, commenting that the fortress wall possesses truly exquisite architecture. He uses his appraisal skill, and it informs him that he's in the trading city of Belkain, in the kingdom of Alceria, whose adventurous guild is the largest on the continent. Takeru observes a long line for inspection before entering the city, prompting him to magically disguise his item bag, making it appear quite ordinary. When his turn comes, Takeru tells Vi to stay calm and hidden for a moment, so the little dragon conceals himself inside his cloak. The guards diligently inspect the contents of his bag, and everyone there remarks that encountering a material collector is indeed a rare sight. One of them asks if he's here to sell what he's collected, but Takeru clarifies that he only came because he's interested in the Adventurers Guild. The inspector expected a reason like that, because Belkain is the city of trade and adventure after all. He says that people like him are welcome here, but clarifies he still has to do his job, so he's going to cast the Avarice spell on him. Takeru clearly has no idea what it is, so the inspector explains that it's a spell to verify if new arrivals are suspicious. The man approaches Takeru, using a magic item resembling a magnifying glass, finding nothing unusual. The woman inspecting his gear mentions that his belongings are fine too, and Takeru feels a little relieved. Still, he wonders what his status looks like from other people's point of view, so he decides to use scan to spy on what the inspector sees. His appraisal skill only tells him the man's name is Raiden, a gate inspector for Belkane's security detail. This isn't what Takeru wanted to see, so he tries to dig deeper, and finally his appraisal skill shows him how others see him. They only perceive him as a 19-year-old lacking an assigned rank, capable of using magic and possessing some skills, but devoid of a spirit. Takeru notices his status looks pretty basic, so he assumes that all the gifts the god gave him don't show up. Once the inspector decides that everything is in order, he jots something down, and Takeru thinks he's free to enter. However, Raiden asks him, "What's this blessing of?" Used indicates he has one. Hearing this, Takeru decides to show rather than tell and tells Vi she can come out now. Vi quickly pops out of his coat, and Takeru explains that the dragon's blessing is probably because of this little one. The two inspectors are completely smitten by how adorable Vi is, but Raiden quickly attempts to compose himself and requests Takeru to place some identification tag on the dragon to confirm its ownership. Unsure of what to use, Takeru rummages through his bag and actually finds the amulet the village children gave him. So, he decides to put that amulet on Vi's tail, and Raiden states that will be sufficient. He will now notify the mayor that a dragon has entered the city and that it won't cause any trouble. The woman hands him back his bag, informing him that the Adventurers Guild is located directly down the main street, and it's the prominent building visible to him. Takeru thanks her for the information, and Raiden finally extends his welcome to Belkane. Shortly after, Takeru and Vi enter the city, immediately noticing how lively it is. Takeru mentions that it feels like he's arrived in another world, even though he's been in the Deus for a while. Just as the woman said, he walks down the main street until he finds a huge building, so he assumes that's the Adventurers Guild and decides to go in. Vi follows him as always, and as soon as they enter, a girl with bunny ears welcomes them to the Europa Adventurers Guild. She introduces herself as the receptionist Ariana and says that new adventurer registrations are always welcome. Takeru follows her to her desk and she asks him to fill out a form with his name and current occupation. At that moment, while filling out the form without any trouble, Takeru realizes he can read the language even though he's never written it before. Somehow, whatever he's pondering just writes itself onto the paper, and he's completely unaware of which skill is causing it, but it's clearly incredibly convenient. Once he finishes filling out the form, Ariana gets excited seeing he's a material gatherer and asks if he has any combat experience. Takeru mentions he has some, having engaged in battles with a giant bird, a snake-tailed wolf, and a truly delectable crab. Ariana, somewhat surprised, asks if he has proof of that last one just to confirm. Takeru hesitates a bit and tells her it's rather large, so he's not sure if it's okay to take it out.
He said so.
The receptionist, a little nervous, asks him to do it, so Takeru pulls out a whole Mont Blanc crab from his item box, one of the many he and Vi defeated earlier. Ariana immediately freaks out as the giant crab completely crushes her desk. It is only then that Takeru truly understands his error, but before he can even utter an apology, the poor receptionist flees, clearly overwhelmed with terror. The dust cloud conceals what transpired in her office, leading the other adventurers to inquire about the commotion. When the dust settles, Takeru awkwardly explains that it's just a Mont Blanc crab, though that's obvious to everyone. Following that small incident, Takeru still nervously inquires whether that Mont Blanc crab will suffice as evidence of his combat experience. Ariana, still quite stunned, tells him that's more than enough proof. However, one of the adventurers then mentions that he possesses an item box. Takeru confirms it but explains it was just a gift, though that doesn't sound very convincing. The eyes of one of the adventurers suddenly begin to glow brightly as he uses some kind of skill on Takeru, observing him very carefully and intently. After a few seconds, the man confirms that Takeru isn't lying, so he tells Ariana it's all good, since he's telling the truth and that the guy is blue. Feeling a little confused, Takeru decides to ask what he means by blue, and the adventurer replies that he used avarice. He apologizes for casting it on him without warning and explains that his version of the skill reads a person's nature. Blue means he's clean, pure-hearted, so he knows Takeru isn't a bad person. Takeru knows he wasn't lying, so he finds that fair. Setting that aside, the man suggests they proceed with the appraisal and payment, but Ariana informs him that Takeru is still in the middle of the registration process. This leaves the man quite bewildered, as he had clearly assumed that Takeru was there to sell the crab's shell. Hearing that, Takeru decides to correct him, saying that he actually just wants to eat this one. Everyone present in the guild is left a little perplexed upon hearing that. asking him if he's actually going to eat that thing. Takeru can only offer an awkward smile, utterly bewildered by the commotion, considering that in his view, the Mont Blanc crab meat is incredibly delicious. The adventurer decides to ignore that topic and continue with the registration, asking him if he has any party members. Takeru then points to Vi, explaining that she is his partner, which once again astonishes everyone. Having a dragon as a partner instantly boosts his reputation, and just like that, Takeru quickly starts to draw attention. Noticing this, Ariana decides to finalize his registration, telling him that everyone starts at rank F, the lowest, as per guild rules. She tells him she'll be rooting for him, and Takeru thanks her as he accepts the bracelet she hands him, realizing it now matches Vi's.